Hi, and welcome to the Hollywood Dreammaker podcast. I'm your host, Billy Gallo. I'm a 35-year veteran actor. I'm the kid who came out to Hollywood with $200 in my pocket and a one-way ticket when I was 18. Didn't know a soul out here, and I've been living my dream ever since. I've had an amazing career. I've been an Academy Award-winning film, blockbuster film, hit TV series. You name it, I've done it, and I got the IMDb credits to prove it. 6 years ago, I opened up my own school, the Manhattan Actor Studio, where I found my true passion. That's teaching the craft of acting, but not only teaching the craft of being the guy. Success leaves clues. I know how to make dreams a reality. I did it for myself, and I do it on a daily basis for my students. And I can help you achieve yours. Welcome to my podcast. Let's get started. I am super excited to introduce my guest. He's a 4-time Emmy Award-winning casting director. He's cast such iconic television shows as China Beach, ER, The West Wing, Shameless, Animal Kingdom, just to name a few. I want to welcome one of my favorite casting directors, John Frank Levey, to the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Billy. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to talk to you about our careers and what we've learned.
You know, I created this podcast to inspire other artists to follow their dreams, right? If a kid like me can come out to Hollywood at 18 with $200 in my pocket, a one-way ticket, didn't know a soul out here, I just had this dream, and make the dream a reality, then why can't the listener out there, right? If a guy like you can come from the Bronx, right? You're from the Bronx, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
To come out of the Bronx and have the career, the shows that you've been such a huge impact in television. I mean, you made the dream a reality. So if you can do it, if I can do it, then those listeners out there can do it.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, but it's not just wishing and dreaming. There's a hell of a lot of hard work, both in terms of whatever craft you end up in, but also in discovering and enhancing yourself. So that's the work that all of us need to be doing, is being on this journey of self-discovery and self-actualization, growth and change. And that's really the secret, is to find yourself so that you can find the role that you're most right for, the roles you're most right for. And that's really what the book is about and what my life has been about.
Right for the role. Love the book. I highly recommend all my listeners out there, all you actors out there, even if you're not actors, to pick up Right for the Role. It's an awesome book. Congratulations.
Thanks, Billy. It was hard work, and I resisted a lot of it. I'm very grateful to the woman I wrote it with, Trudy Roth, who kept saying to me, John, you got to reveal yourself. John, you got to be more personal here. You got to tell us what you're thinking, what you're feeling, not just stories about famous people you knew. And I'm kind of notoriously private. And so that was a struggle for me. But I realized that if I wanted to have impact, if I wanted the book to mean anything, that she was right, and that I had to reveal myself and talk about things that were personal and triumphant things and painful moments, all of which contributed to my opportunities and my successes.
Love that. Your vulnerability is your strength. And, there's some beautiful stories in the book. So, thank you for being vulnerable and put yourself out there.
No, it wasn't my instinct.
So I want to go back to the beginning. When did you know that you want to be in this crazy Hollywood showbiz? You started out, I believe, as an actor, right? When did you know?
Well, when I was, I tell the story in the book, and so there was this girl. Is kind of the way I start every chapter. I didn't do it in the actual book, but when I was a kid, my mom took me to the theater, and I think all little boys are kind of lost and wondering where the hell they're supposed to be and who they are and all that kind of stuff. And I was definitely lost at 12 or 14. My parents' marriage was falling apart. I was confused about what my role was in my family and in my school and in my friendships and all of that. But when we got to the theater and the lights went out and the curtain opened and people were vulnerable and passionate and thrilling, I I guess, I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I think what happened to me in the theater is what often happens to people in mosques and temples and churches and other places of worship. I started to experience something magical. And so I think I knew right then that being part of the storytelling arts was something I was going to want to do. I didn't know if I was going to write or act, or I didn't even know what directing meant, or I didn't know anything about anything except that my heart was beating a little faster, my eyes were open a little wider, and I was engaged.
That's awesome. I have a very similar story. I came from a broken home. My parents were divorced. There was a lot of abuse. There was a lot of, listen, if there was a checklist of everything that could possibly go wrong to a child, I check all the boxes, But for me, it was, needing to be loved. And I found that, when I would perform and I get a little pat on the back, I felt love. I'd go to the butcher and I'd act like a piece of bacon frying up on a pan in the floor in the butcher, and he'd cut me a slice of bologna, and it was like I got a reward for it, And then at 11, Universal Pictures came to my neighborhood and they parked their trucks on my block, and they were filming a movie called Nunzio with David Proval and James Andronica and Morgana King, and I kind of finagled my way in there, and I got a little part, and that's when I got a little powder on the nose, I got a little craft services, and that's when I got bit by the acting bug at 11.
That sounds like a fantastic experience for a 9-year-old searching for himself. Gosh, I worked with David Proval years later, I'm sure, and I'm remembering now how fantastic he was on the Sopranos.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story real quick. So, I'm an actor because David Proval came to my block to shoot Nunzio. I mean, that was the moment when I knew. I remember I snuck on. They had there was a bungalow, and they had built all the interior sets, and I snuck on to that lot. And like you said, it was magical with the sets and the lights and the fake walls and the quiet on the set. I mean, it was truly. I remember it was a dark place, and I just followed the light into where they were filming, and it was just pure magic. And
it was kind of like a night game at Yankee Stadium. Had that same dramatic, magical feeling when you were a boy. It was like, and it's the same. It's all that's just performance.
Yeah. So I built my school here in Manhattan Beach 10 years ago, and about 2 years ago, I was in Guatemala on a mission trip building homes out there. And I got a phone call from somebody, and I checked my machine, and it was David Proval.
Really?
He was driving by my school, and he did some teaching back in the day, and he was looking to maybe teach a class. So he said, "My name's David Proval, blah, 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 blah." So I called him back. I go, "David, I know who you are." I said, "I'm an actor because you made a movie in my neighborhood." And, he lives in my neighborhood. He lives in Redondo Beach. I live in Redondo Beach. He came to the studio. So it was like full circle. And he came, he taught a class here, which was awesome. And it was just like magic. You couldn't make that.
Yeah, that's. We talked about it earlier before we went on to recording this, but I'm a giant believer in the happy accident. Some people call it karma or whatever else. You believe in miracles or all of that. But I think one of the things that we all can benefit from is if we're open to the happy accident. When I was 30 and I was at the Mark Taper Forum on a fellowship to direct plays, I had never heard of a casting director at that point. And because I did a lot of readings of new plays there, there was somebody from the literary department, and there was this guy from the casting department, a guy called Frank Bayer, who I just love. He's long gone, I'm sad to say. But he would bring actors to my attention, and we would rehearse plays. And I suddenly thought, he has an interesting job. And he needs to speak the language of actors. He needs to speak the language of directors. He needs to speak the language of playwrights. And so do I. Huh.
Love that. It's for me, the same thing happened to me. I mean, I've been blessed. I came out to Hollywood at 18 and I booked my first audition. I got my SAG card. I got Taft Hartley on a guest star episode of The Fall Guy. It was magic. It was like, I remember sitting in Brooklyn before I came out to Hollywood, watching this television show with Lee Majors called The Fall Guy. I grew up watching him on The $6 Million Man. And I said to myself, I'm going to do that. This is what I'm going to do. So when I get to Hollywood and I get my first agent, I get my first audition, it's for The Fall Guy. And the character's name is Billy. And he's a leader of a gang. So I went into that room and, I got that part. I got my SAG card and I was off to the races. But, that didn't just happen. That was the universe. I knew what I wanted to do. I put it out there and I went after it and I took massive action. I jumped on a plane, traveled 3,000 miles, and I banged on every door in Hollywood. I remember when I wanted to get an agent, I was like, okay, first thing, my $200 ran out real fast. I was like, whoa, what am I going to do? Somebody told me about this thing called a recycler, and I looked in there and I found a room for rent. Older woman had a broken leg. She needed somebody to take out the trash, whatever. So now I had a place to live. So now I was like, this is back in 1984 before cell phones and all that stuff. So I got a list of agents and I literally banged on every door in Hollywood. And they slammed in my face, get lost. No, 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 no. And I went through the A's, the B's, the C's, the D's, and I kept banging on a door. Finally at Y, the Yanez Talent Agency, I got a yes.
I remember Bob Yanez.
Yeah, and Bob was a kind of character, man. He was, let me tell you. I mean, I remember the first time I met him, he opened up his drawer and he said, "You want a shot of tequila?" And I was like literally walking out the door when he said, wait, there's a part on a show called The Fall Guy. And I went, The Fall Guy? I said, you get me that audition, I'm going to get that part. And he got me the audition and I got the part, and the rest is history.
Yeah,
but that's the power of...
Well, we're saying happy accident, but you're also saying determination, hard work, belief in yourself, all of those things create the happy accidents. They're not really accidents at all. That's just a way of talking about them that makes it make sense to you. But it's not the lightning strike of good fortune that's bashing you in the head. It's a result of your being on a journey where you want to know more about yourself so that you can give more of yourself to the world. Being in the storytelling world is all about communicating human truths to the audience so that they can learn, grow, change. That's our service. And it's millions of years old, the storytelling arts. Those guys with the floppy shoes who, fall down around the fire where people are watching them, and those clowns and those fools. They're us, and it's a high art, and it's you have to be. You talked about service, and I think anybody who wants to be in the storytelling arts has to be doing it not for the limousine rides, not for the fancy tuxedos and beautiful dresses and jewelry and champagne in the back of the limousine and all those perks, which, by the way, are swell. But that's not your purpose can't be just about you in a self-aggrandizing way. It has to be about you in a giving way, you in a participating way, you striving for community, for collaboration, for creativity. That's what it's all about.
I couldn't agree more. First, I just want to say this. I got an opportunity to say this to you, so I'm pretty excited to be able to say this to you because, as a young actor, it's a scary thing, trying to bang on doors and trying to get work as an actor and, putting yourself out there and being vulnerable and, walking into that room. And, I was very blessed. I booked that job, but then I was on the roller coaster, the seesaw ride of Hollywood, the feast or famine, and, when those auditions came in and you really needed it and you were desperate to get that job because you needed to pay your rent, there was always that added pressure of, I need this, but why I said you were one of my favorite casting directors in Hollywood is because you created an environment for an actor. I remember when I would be sitting in that lobby and my heart would be pounding and I'd be, I was prepared, I was ready to go, but that energy, that excitement starts to, kick in. But you would always come out into the lobby and you were just so warm and you created such a safe environment for an actor. And I think it's because you are an actor and you know how fragile actors can be. And you just created such a beautiful place for actors to come in and play. I mean, I used to love when, I've been blessed. When I was reading your book, I was like, it was like, I've seen you've done a couple of interviews, with other people, but I was there. I was part of that.
Yeah.
I was on China Beach. That China Beach for me was, I got lucky and I landed a TV series in 1987 with Matthew Perry and I launched the Fox network with my TV show. But the writer's strike happened, and the show didn't get picked up, and I was out of work, and I've been doing sitcoms. I never thought of myself as a comedic actor. I was a serious actor from Lee Strasberg, the actor studio in New York, and all of a sudden I'm doing sitcoms. And it was cool because I was getting paid, but I always wanted to do the dramatic stuff. And then comes along China Beach, which was, the hottest show. It had an amazing cast. And I got an audition and it was a monologue, it was an awesome monologue. I played I don't know if you remember this. I played a paraplegic who was, that I was, I do this whole monologue about the water, that I'm good in the water because I can use my arms and you can't see below the water and you can't see my legs. And there's this, it was literally a full page monologue.
Yeah.
And when I read it, it was so juicy and rich and meaty. And I was like, I want this thing. And I remember I came in and I read for you and you were so awesome. I felt like you were cheering me on, like you wanted this for me, like you were fighting for me to get that part. And that
I was fighting for you, Billy, to do your best work and feel the best about yourself and go home and not punch the steering wheel of your car and say, God damn it, why didn't I? God damn it, how could I have done? And I really appreciate you saying the stuff about the environment that I created, because I knew that instinctively, that my job when we were in session was to create the world that would give you the opportunity to be your best self and to be your best actor. And that was me having to learn how to be empathetic and how to care about somebody else. And one of the things that I hope the book does is kind of demystify the power of the casting director and kind of making you all actors taking away your power, and that's not helpful to anybody. I want each one of you to do your best, and I want one of you to get the job so I can go home and have dinner with my children or my girlfriend or my wife when I was married, or whatever. I want to make sure you understand that I'm not there to stop you, to discourage you, to block you, but I am there to demand that you bring your real self, your whole self, your best self to the work. And then we'll see if you're right for the role, if you're, shameless plug for the title of the book, or if you conform to the vision of the director or the writer or the producer. That's all pretty mercurial and abstract and difficult to pin down who gets the job. But who has a great experience is something I could contribute to. And I prided myself on that. And I'm glad you recognized it. And I'm glad you felt that way. I don't specifically remember that monologue, but it was very similar in your description to a monologue from the pilot, which was a character called the Burnt Soldier. And Chloe Webb's character sang to this guy after he recited a kind of monologue about what it was like to be napalmed to near death. And I read that scene many times with actresses who were reading for the part that Chloe ended up playing. And at a certain point, the president of Warner Brothers Television, a wonderful Brooklyn guy called Harvey Shepard, said to me, "John, I'd like you to play the part of the burnt soldier." And I was like, "No, Harvey, I can't do that. I have my job and somebody else will play that part." And I was able to plug in the way you're talking about, able to plug in. And of course, I had the glorious experience of not needing the job or wanting the job. And so it got easier. And I think that's important to say that, yeah, you got to pay your rent, and you need to buy food, and you need to, have health insurance and all the things you need. But if you bring that need into the work, that's going to block you. And if you just bring your connection to the guy, your authentic, real connection to the guy you're going to be playing, if you can find the way to creatively marry yourself to the circumstances of the character without all that stuff, you'll have a good experience and do good work. And maybe you'll get the job.
Yeah. I always look at it as you have a problem, right? Cast and direct. I got to cast this role. I'm the solution.
Yeah.
I've done the work. I've done the prep. I remember that China Beach thing. I played a paraplegic. I tied a belt around my legs and I dragged myself around my house. I didn't use my legs. I'm a method actor. I was like trying to drag myself into the shower, to the toilet, trying to, prepare a meal. Like I wanted to really feel what it was like to not be able to use your legs. So
that's what I mean by marrying your true self, using your imagination and your experience to marry yourself with the circumstances of the character. And if you do that authentically, the work will resonate and it'll be exciting. And, auditioning is an opportunity to do the thing you love.
Yeah.
And if you take the result out of it, obviously it's better when you get the job than when you don't. But if that experience propelled you forward and you hadn't gotten the job, the only difference would have been the check and the experience of being on set. And those are important things. But you would have already had the experience of creating that marriage between yourself and the circumstances of the character. And that's valuable as hell.
Absolutely. Every role, every audition is an opportunity to create a character. It's an opportunity to act in front of an audience. It's playtime. It's, to be in that, to be in play.
I couldn't agree more. And that mindset is an important part of success.
I learned very early on, it was about relationships. It was about building, let's say I'm not right for this role, but that casting director is going to remember that I came in prepared. I came in ready to, make a fan because, you're going to remember me. I'm going to make some big choices. I may not be right for the role, but you're going to remember what I did in that room. And I think, for me, I've been blessed. I mean, Barbara Clayman, she cast me in one of my first roles, and when I came out. I mean, it was my second audition that I booked. It was Barbara Clayman, and she also, I became on her little list, and she cast me in a TV series called Santa Barbara, a soap opera, and then she cast me in a commercial, and there were those casting directors that once you got on their list and they were a fan and they knew that they can count on you, that you're going to come in the room and you're going to make them look good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I always loved it when I got a new project because it meant I could use all the people that I loved from the previous project again. And you're very right. We build a repertory company of people that we can trust, people whose work we admire, people who we know are going to be collaborative and part of a community and not be selfish. Back in the day at Warner Brothers, we had an executive who used to say that he had a rule, the no assholes rule. And sometimes you can't abide by it, but people who behave themselves and are collaborative and want to play their part in a community that's all pulling together. What was the great Tommy Lasorda quote about pulling the rope in the same direction? I don't remember exactly, but another East Coast Italian American who I admired.
No. It's all about collaboration. I mean, that's what filmmaking, television, it's a community. Like you said, it's community.
Yeah.
And you want to be a team player. You want to be somebody that I know, going to make a film or TV, it's like going to war. We're working 16-hour days. I got to know I can count on you. I got to know you're going to be professional. I know you're going to show up, hit your mark, know your lines. I don't have to worry about you. And if I can count on you, I'm going to want to work with you again.
Yeah. And I'm going to have fun doing it. And if people are having fun while they're doing work, even if the work is dark and, dangerous and sad, but if people are relishing the experience, it reads. And the audience gets engaged by that engagement that the actors and the director and the lighting guy and the costumer and the caterer and all those people, that community. And, it goes back for me to the theater, and it goes back to me to sports. I learned that very early, that not everybody's the quarterback. Not everybody's the star. Not everybody gets the accolades. Not everybody, and to not want that, to find the role that I was right for, that gave me the opportunity to be my best self, to make my greatest contribution. And I think, John Wells, who I worked for more than 3 decades, and I hope to continue to work for going forward. But he very definitely understood that we were going to spend more time together than we would with our families for a certain period of time, and that everybody pulling on the rope in the same direction and being reliable partners and being exciting collaborators and forming a beautiful community, that was what it was. And that, whatever accolades I've gotten, and I've been stupidly fortunate to be involved in great projects that gave me a public profile, that allowed me to write a book, that allowed people to give a damn about the book that I wrote with Trudy. The accolades weren't my goal. When I was writing the book, when it was almost finished, I started sending emails out to actors, writers, directors, producers that I'd worked with over the years. And I said, hey, would you write a few sentences that I might use for promotional material, blurbs on the cover of the book, blah, blah, blah. And one of my dear friends, who was a writer on China Beach and then later on ER and later on West Wing, and named Carol Flint, talented, wonderful person. She said, are you really writing a book, or are you just collecting accolades? and it was kind of a joke, but it hit me nicely, because I never thought I was number one on the call sheet or wanted to be. I wanted to be part of the team, and I wanted to encourage everybody on the team to bring their authentic best self to the work, because I knew then we would all have life-changing opportunities to grow and change.
The opposite is true too. If you're not prepared, if you're not somebody, if you're an egomaniac, if you're somebody who's hard to work with, you're somebody who shows up late, your reputation gets around in the business and people are not going to want to work with you.
Absolutely.
So it's really important for actors to know that it's all about the work. It's all about preparation. I mean, I'm sure for you, if you have an actor that comes in and they don't know their lines and they're struggling and they're, it's like you're wasting my time, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably not going to bring that actor back into your room, right?
Well, that's strike one. I usually, because I'm a baseball lover, I'll get you to strike. I'll get you to strike three. But if you get to strike three, you're out.
You're out. Yeah, wow, that's very generous, because I know there's some casting directors that don't give you a second chance. There's no strike. If you make me look bad, I don't need to look bad in front of the producer. So, I'm going to bring that actor that I know I can count on to come into the room.
Yes, without question. It's so important the way you present yourself. And it's not about being pretentious or serious or any of that. It's about being, as you say, prepared, but and also demonstrating that you're a collaborative person, that you want to find your space and you want to fill it.
What is your advice to actors? It's just changed so drastically from when, we started in this business, back in the early 80s, right? Technology, self-tapes, I remember back in the day, it's funny, I read about breakdown services, that you worked at breakdown services, right?
Yeah.
So I have a funny story, because when I came out to Hollywood, I was relentless in my pursuit that I'm going to do this and nothing's going to stop me. I'm the kid who would show up at Warner Brothers and the guard at the gate would say, "Sorry, kid, you can't come in." And I'd walk around the building, climb the wall, hop onto the lot. I'm from Brooklyn. You can't tell me I'm not coming in. I'm coming in, And I spend the whole day on the lot, walking, talking to Kevin Bacon on the set of Quicksilver. And, I'm making friends. Nobody knew I just jumped a lot. I'm not telling anybody to jump lots these days. It's a lot different than it was back in the early 80s. But when I found out about breakdowns, I was like, somebody told me that there's a paper that has all the roles on it, and they would drop them off in front of the casting, agents' offices. So I had the bright idea that I was going to go get those breakdowns and I would steal them. So I would take those breakdowns. But then I realized, I would sit in Denny's and I'd look at and then I realized, wait a second, they weren't showing up the next day. So I would take the breakdowns. I'd go to Kinko's or a copy place. I'd make a copy and then I put the envelope back so I could continue to get the breakdowns. And I would sit in Denny's I was in 1986 and I'd be my own manager and I'd be pitching myself. You got to see this kid. He's from New York City, actor studio, Lee Strasberg. He's the greatest thing since Al Pacino. I would have a pitch and then I would get that. Remember that yellow envelope back in the day for those submissions? I would walk to the gate and go, "I got a submission for John Levey." And the guard in the gate would let me in and I'd have that envelope with one picture in it. And it was mine.
Yeah, well, I hope for your sake that Gary Marsh, who founded Breakdown Services and still runs it, doesn't hear our podcast, because the state troopers will be at your door, even though the statute of limitations has probably expired.
Yeah, I think the statute of limitations has expired. But I heard you guys used to go find those people with the stolen breakdowns and hit them with a flashlight and bust them.
Yeah. Yeah, Gary was vigilant about protecting his copyrighted material.
Sure.
And and that was his business. And of course, I certainly don't condone what you did, but it does make me laugh.
I feel like you got to be relentless in the pursuit of it. The business has changed drastically, from back in the day when, you'd walk into a room and you'd audition and you get a call back in front of the producer, a producer session, and then maybe you'd go to network and you'd test that, now it's self-tape. So how do you feel about how this industry has changed as far as auditioning?
Well, Billy, I think obviously it has changed greatly. And I miss very much being in the room with actors. It was a fantastic experience to be 6 feet away from world-class talent, reading with people and hoping that they're going to do great work, and watching them and hearing them and feeling them, and all of that it so feeds into my way of working, which is very instinctive. But like technology in all the arenas of our lives has created efficiency and has created, all kinds of positive things. But I do feel that it's a little preposterous to be in the business of telling human stories without much human contact. But that said, ultimately, unless we're talking about live theater, ultimately we're seeing you on screens of various sizes anyway. And so auditioning you on screens of various sizes has its value. I don't think the work has changed. I think you still have to connect to your humanity and find the connection between your humanity and the humanity of the character, your imagination and your experiences and the character's experiences and circumstances. That all is the same. And as a result of that, I think, your preparation and your work is the same. And I'm an old dog, and it's hard to teach me a new trick, but I'm learning it. And I'm able to say that during the pandemic, when we were casting virtually instead of in person, our work at Levey Casting was just as good as it was during the era when it was all live. So I'm reluctantly being dragged by my ears into the contemporary world. It's not my instinct. It's not my comfort zone, but it's where I got to live to do what I love to do.
So is there no more in person?
I haven't had an office since the day after the pandemic started.
Wow.
You're in my office, which happens also to double as my bedroom. So finally, all the actors in America have made it to Levey's bedroom. That's just a joke.
You know what I found for me during the whole pandemic? I have a school and my doors are closed. So it was like I went online, I pivoted immediately, and I started teaching my classes online. But I liked working when, it just opened me up. And now I'm global. I have students in different countries, states. You don't have to be here in my brick and mortar. And it's here. I'm in a close-up. I'm seeing you in a close-up, and I'm watching you in a close-up. So I really enjoyed working with actors via Zoom because I'm looking at you as I would on filming you, in that close-up. I can see your eyes. I can see if you're telling the truth.
I looked at you that way in the room. I wasn't distracted by anything. I was your face, your eyes, your voice, your body was my preoccupation. And it's the same. It's just you have to adjust sort of you just have to adjust your spine a little bit or whatever. And Billy, if you'd like me to do an audition technique class for your students sometime, please let me know.
I would love that. Let's do it. Absolutely.
Great.
So let me ask you here, this is how I feel. This is my opinion. And I know I teach this to my actors, and my actors are booking jobs left and right. I know for me, I've booked so many self-tapes. I'm not even pursuing it because I'm so busy with the school but there have been things that popped up and jumped onto my radar, and my old agent would call me up and say, "Hey, you should go in on this thing." And I was like, "No, I'm not interested. I don't have time, whatever." And I said, "You know what? I have a studio. I got cameras. I got lights. I'll throw up a self-tape." And I landed that role. What I found is it's about, for me, I tell my actors all the time, it's about giving them the performance. It's not auditioning. Now you have an opportunity. Give them the wardrobe. Frame it right. Light it right. Have good sound. Like, bring your self-tapes to the next level. So
Absolutely.
You need the actor with the wrinkled curtain, with the bad lighting, with the silhouette, with the cat in the dirty dishes. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see your sides in your hands. I mean, look right here, you go like this, and below the frame, the sides are gone. So if you need to glance down and pick up your line, but I don't want to see sides. I want to see, give me the performance. I want to be able to look at your footage and take it and put it right up on that film or on that television. There's no excuse not to.
Well, without question, there's no excuse to have a distracting painting behind your head, an Andy Warhol, and there's no excuse to having the microphone be on the camera so that the person reading with you is 5 decibels louder than you are, and all of that is absolutely true. I want to resist a little bit the concept of give me the performance, because I think that drives you to reproducing the result you think is right. And I would say, give me the connection. Give me the what-ifing yourself into the circumstances of the character in as full-bodied a way as you can. But let your performance take care of itself. Let it even surprise you.
I agree.
Because I don't want you to be. I don't want you ever to be reproducing your plan. One of the first things I say to actors in a teaching circumstance is, I know it's hard. Please don't try to be right. Please abandon your plan. Do the connection work. Do the subjective work. What if yourself into the circumstances of the character? And in a certain way, your performance will take care of itself.
That's it. That's what I meant. I mean, doing the work. Like, how do you make this real for you? How do you tap into your truth? How do you substitute? How do you personalize? What choices are you making? How are you loading up your previous circumstance? Are you giving yourself a ticking clock, an animal? The lines are just the lines. They don't necessarily mean they're true.
Absolutely.
What's underneath those lines? What's the subtext? Yeah. What are you really saying? That's
completely,
what I mean by
Billy,
giving
I agree with you completely. Sometimes shut up can mean kiss me.
Yeah, I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean by giving it. Just don't leave it to the imagination. Give it to them. I mean, if I'm reading for the serial killer, right, and it's the interrogation scene, I don't want a purple background. It's fake. Find a real gray wall that looks real. I'm not a fan of the paper, the fake paper. I don't want to put anything in my frame that's fake, because I'm saying fake. That's what I mean by bringing it to that level. That's just my opinion, but I know it works. It's worked for me. I've booked many roles, because I'm bringing that. I'm bringing it. I'm all of the elements. Because I'm sure now you're getting bombarded, because back in the day you'd bring that list of actors into the room, and this is my list of actors that I'm bringing to the room. But now I think it's, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I think you're seeing a lot more submissions, because that actor that you may not have brought into the room. Yeah, why not? Send me a self-tape. I'll look at it.
But we are. That's one of the advantages of the technology, not just the convenience that we talked about earlier, the streamlinedness, but also the volume. You can see a lot more people and quickly and efficiently, and we do that. But nobody does a self-tape for me without an invitation. A self-tape that I haven't asked for doesn't get looked at.
Okay. So What are your no-nos? Like your pet peeve? Like, I don't want to see this. What turns you off when in self-tapes?
Well, it's all the things we've talked about: a lack of preparation, a lack of respect for yourself as an artist, a lack of your respect for me as an artist, a kind of slapdash, I don't give a shit kind of attitude about it. If you don't give a shit, then how is it possible that you're asking me to? So, I mean, I think demonstrating that you care about it, that it's important, that it's something valuable and precious that we're working on together, that's my yes, and my no is anything that is the opposite of that.
So just out of curiosity, what is the process? I know like back in the day, I come in, maybe if you didn't know me, there might be a pre-read, right? If you knew me, maybe I go straight to producers, maybe so what is the process with self-tapes? Do you look at them and then you take your favorites? I mean, back in the day, there would be an adjustment in the room if you gave me, I mean, that's what I loved about you as a casting director, because you always gave me, you were an actor, so a lot of casting directors are just kind of poorly reading the lines, but you were always giving me something,
Yeah, well, something else to think about, something else to connect to. So the process now is similar. Because I'm confident and because I'm experienced, I can kind of look at your face and your resume and who believes in you, and take a chance. As you say, what the hell? If my instinct is wrong and your self-tape is lousy, I can spend 30 seconds deciding that and moving on. So, I go through the electronic submissions, and I talk to agents and managers, and I talk to my two wonderful women that work with me, Kim Wong and Tawny Tamietti. And we collaborate, and we, share, and we make a decision, and we click on actors, and then we invite them to come to do a self-tape, and they do. And then Kim and Tawny will watch all of them if there are maybe 25 or 30, which is maybe 3 times, 4 times as many as we would have done live. And they'll send me the 5 or 6 or so that they, or as whatever the number is of people that feel viable. And then I'll look at those and get it down to 2 or 3, which we'll send off to the director and the writer of the episode and the executive producer, and eventually they'll choose somebody.
So is there no callback? Is there no?
I don't, even in episodic television, I didn't, even in live episodic television, I didn't do a lot of callbacks. Those were for major recurring roles, chemistry reads with a member of the existing star cast. That's when callbacks would happen. But mostly we just did the work, trusted ourselves, respected each other, and moved forward. And, because in episodic television, if you get the script on day 1 of an 8-day prep period, that's fantastic, and sometimes doesn't happen. During The West Wing, Aaron Sorkin never gave us a complete script on day 1. If we were lucky, we might have gotten it on day 3. And so then you immediately have to quickly schedule a session for day 4, but nobody would get in that quick. So you'd have to probably do it on day 5. And then, there were maybe 15 roles, so you could do 8 of them one day and 7 the next day. And then you had to book them. And then, of course, during the pandemic, you had to really ratchet up the speed because people had to go through the testing process. And if they tested positive for the COVID, you had to go back to the beginning and start over.
So, back in the day, and this is one of my students asked me, so this question is not coming from me, but it's coming from one of my students. And I know the answer to it, but I want to hear your answer. How important is first your headshot? How important is that? And who makes the final decision on a Taft Hartley? Like, who says, yeah, let's Taft-Hartley this actor?
Well, during China Beach, I was, I think, known as John Taft-Hartley Levey, because, the average age of a GI in Vietnam was something like 19 or 20. And a lot of those kids who went off to Vietnam and a lot of those kids who played those kids who went off to Vietnam were green. And I'd just like to say to everybody, every single one of you started your life naked without a SAG card, and there's no shame in that. There's only one place to start your career, and that's at the beginning. And so there you are. A lot of producers and directors don't give a damn about things like Taft-Hartley. They don't know about it. And as long as I can facilitate the Taft-Hartley request so that the line producer doesn't say, why the hell do I have to pay a $500 fine to SAG, nobody cares. So for the most part, it was my decision to, if my producer approved an actor's performance, their union affiliation wasn't something that we discussed. And if I had to Taft-Hartley them, I simply do it. And your question about the picture, your picture should look like you. And your picture and your resume are very important if they're an authentic representation of you. If they're not, I remember years and years and years ago, Patricia Noland was my associate, my number 2 chair, and for many years, and I loved working with her. She's a great friend to this day. I just officiated at both of her daughters' weddings. So we're close friends. And I kept apparently picking the same girl off of her headshot. And Patty would finally say to me, John, she's not as pretty as that. You've seen her 3 times and she doesn't look like that. And I would go, oh, okay. Oh. So, your picture has to be an accurate representation of who you are. And it's very important. If it is accurate, it tells me a lot about your essence.
So back in the day, when as a young actor, I would have to book that role on China Beach, and I'd have to go to this guy, Jan Natarno, and have him pull it off the air on a 3/4 tape and transfer it to a VHS tape and, build myself a demo reel from the shows that I did and, ran around Hollywood with my VHS tape demo reel. How important are demo reels now? Do you guys look at demo reels?
I'm very old school. If I'm talking to your agent, who represented you back in the day? Was it Diane Davis?
No, I was all over the place. I mean, I was over at APA. I was at Paul Kohner. I was with
right.
The artist agency. I was with Michael Zanuck. I was with I was all over the place.
Okay. Well, in any event, if I was having a conversation with your agent, whoever it was at the time, and they were submitting you for, you said the serial killer earlier, and I said, well, gee, I know Billy's a Brooklyn boy and he's got some toughness, but I just don't see him as a serial killer. And if they said, I've got some tape that can show you a really dangerous side of Billy Gallo, then I would watch it, and I would be happy to be wrong. Sometimes I was right. But I don't watch demos for no reason. I watch demos to resolve a difference of opinion.
Got it. So, what I do here with my actors is, I really kind of figure out their castability. Like, what is it that you're selling to Hollywood? I mean, you're a product. You're selling a product. What is your castability? If you don't know what you're selling, Hollywood doesn't know what they're buying.
Boy, you're just saying something exactly that I say. There are 2 things that are unique about actors, and one of them is that you're the product and the salesperson. And if you don't know what the product is that you're selling, I don't care how good a salesperson you are, you're out of joint. Also, you're the instrument and the player. All the other artists in the world have a piano, and if it's in tune, you can pluck the 35th key from the left and you know what it's going to sound like. And so you have to learn about your instrument while you're developing the skill to play it. You have to learn about the product, and you have to develop the skill to sell that product. Those are a very important part of your development. And, I'm always also saying you have certain qualities. I hate thinking about it as type, but each of us has certain qualities. And then, of course, the next question is, how do I know what my qualities are? How do I know what people see when they see me? And the answer is, how does the world treat you? If everybody is always confiding in you, you seem trustworthy. If everybody's always hitting on you, you seem sexually available. If the elevator door opens and the young mother with her toddler doesn't get on with you, you seem sketchy. And how the world treats you is how you learn about yourself and what the product is and what you're selling.
Love that. You got to become, the instrument is so important to build your actor toolbox, to load it up with life experience, to people watch, to observe, to go to museums, to get outside your comfort zone, to do things you never have done before, to listen to different kind of music,
You're speaking my language. I say, if you grew up in an Italian household with your grandmother making fantastic gravy, which everybody else calls sauce, then go to an Indian restaurant. Mm-hmm. If you like me and you love a baseball game, go to the opera.
Yeah.
If you find yourself sitting around a dinner party and everybody is the same political beliefs or religious affiliations or sexual orientation or whatever it is that defines us, then do something else. I don't want to. There's another acting teacher in town who I've talked with who wrote a great book called "Fuck Your Comfort Zone." Mm-hmm. I don't want to advertise her book on your podcast, but I think we should all F our comfort zone.
Sure, absolutely.
Because all we really have is our experience and our imagination and our body and our voice, and we have to grow all of our control over all of those things and expand all of those things so that our instrument has an opportunity to grow and our ability as a player has an opportunity to get more skillful.
Yeah, and everything you want is outside your comfort zone. So you got to be willing to step out of it and really, be uncomfortable and get comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, that's what acting is. It's being out there. It's being vulnerable. It's bearing your soul in front of a camera, in front of an audience, and being able to do that, and knowing that, look, I'm not going to die. I'm jumping out. I'm leaping. It's a leap of faith. Knowing that
during the time, Billy, that we were doing Shameless, I learned that for many actors, it's easier to be naked than it is to be emotionally naked.
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
When I look at your resume and I look at, China Beach and ER, I was blessed to be on ER. You cast me in ER too. So, I mean, when I'm going down, I go, oh, that's on my resume. I did China Beach. I did ER, So I'm grateful. Great. I'm grateful to you, John, that, you were there for me as an actor. You were bringing me into that room. You were kind of cheering me on and going, yeah, let's get Billy Gallo in here. Let's, so I'm very grateful. And I thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it. And as you said earlier, I have a problem or a circumstance, and you have the possibility of being the answer. And so while I'm supporting you, you're supporting me. We're working together.
Yeah.
Even if you don't get the job, you and I are collaborating as two artists in the process of, and you're contributing to the storytelling, whether you get the job or you don't.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of actors put the casting director on a pedestal, like they're the gatekeeper, like they're it's something dangerous, but you want the actor to be great.
Completely. Why would we want you to fail? How would that benefit us in any way? I mean, some of us are empathetic and care, but even just practically, solve my problem.
Do you keep notes like, on actors? Do you have a file like, can you go back?
I don't. Fortunately, my memory hasn't started to fade. So while I don't remember the two parts that you got, ER and China Beach, I remember auditioning you very clearly. And it's interesting to be myself at this age, to see you now, not as that young stallion who's trying to take the world over, but as this wiser, landed man who has found a role that he's right for and is relishing the experience. It's a great experience now to see. And you're still Billy, I guess. I used to be Johnny, but I'm John now. But I love to keep Johnny in my pocket because there would be no John without all the shit Johnny put him through.
Sure. I look at it now as everything. I used to think that everything that happened to me it was like happened to me, but now I realize it happened for me. It was all a gift. I needed to go through all the shit that I went through to become the father I am today, the husband I am today, the teacher I am today. I mean, if you would have told me years ago that I'd be a teacher, I would have told you, fuck off, but I got a calling, in the hardest moment of my life. It was 10 years ago when the shit was hitting the fan for me. I lost my 11-year-old niece to brain cancer. I lost my stepfather to prostate cancer. My dog ran out and got hit by a car. My wife and I had a miscarriage. My wife got diagnosed with breast cancer. I mean, life was pummeling me. I tore my rotator cuff and my labrum playing softball, so I couldn't work. I was in a sling for 9 months. And it was just like, it couldn't have gotten any worse. And that's when I got a little calling saying, how are you being of service? You need to open up a school. And
that's a very specific kind of thing. And I would just say, and again, this is a shameless plug of the book, but your journey had triumphs and obstacles. And both of those things are opportunities to grow and change and find the role or roles that you are right for in life: father, husband, teacher, casting director, father, partner, person.
Yeah. Amen. If you could go back, right, and talk to Johnny, right, go back to young Johnny and give him some, knowing what you know now, right? Give Johnny some life advice. What would that be?
Wow. Don't be in a hurry. Don't always seek approval from others in every situation. Don't need to overcome the lack of approval you felt from your pop. And bring that to every interaction with any other person. Be patient and be gentle with yourself. It'll happen.
Beautiful. I look back at my life, right, and I think about I was needing to be loved from a father. I didn't get that. So I searched for love, and I thought that acting was going to fulfill that. And I chased that, and I got it. I had the TV series, I had the big movies and the things and all that stuff. I had all that material stuff. And I was like, is this it?
Yeah.
Is this it?
Well, you got to fill that hole yourself through your own development and willingness to grow and change. And while the champagne in the back of the limousine is beautiful and the Emmy Award is spectacular and all of that, it doesn't fill the hole. You got to do that by being on that personal journey of discovery and awareness, and that's really your job. No matter what other things you do in your life, your job is to become your best self.
What I found was the secret to living is giving. is being of service. That's what I get to do on a daily basis. I get to touch people's lives. I get to make a difference in their lives. And it's so much more rewarding. When my actors call me up and I got an agent, I got my SAG card, I got this, I got that. It's more rewarding than when I got the part.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it all day long. So to me, that's what I found is being of service.
I would just call it contributing to a creative, collaborative community by doing your best work and respectfully relying on others. And, you know, I've had a lot of success, and none of it is my success. It's our success. We did it together.
Beautifully said. John, I can't thank you enough for taking this time and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with me. And I would love to have you come to my studio and teach a class on auditioning. You know, if anybody could write a book on being right for the role, it's John Levey. And I'm so glad that you got outside your comfort zone. You created this book, Right for the Role. Anybody, you know, you want to pick this book up. And I just can't thank you enough for taking the time, John.
Great. I appreciate it, Billy. And can I just say that I have a website, which is John Frank Levey. And I'm on Instagram, John_Frank_Levey. Don't forget that's pesky second E in Levey. It's not Levey, it's Levey. And if you buy the book on my website, Jeff Bezos doesn't get the money. I do, and I'll mail you an autographed copy of it. And but it is available on Amazon if you want to enrich Mr. Bezos further. There's an ebook and a paperback book and a hardcover book. It's also available autographed at the Barnes & Noble in the San Fernando Valley and Laurel Canyon area on Ventura Boulevard. And I've really enjoyed talking to you, Billy. You're clearly on a wonderful journey of self-discovery and service. And that is, you should be commended for that. And I'm sure you get a great deal of satisfaction in the eyes of the people you're influencing. And I'm familiar with that gratifying feeling. And I think we share a lot, including a torn rotator cuff and labrum, which was repaired with surgery.
I haven't fixed mine yet. I'm a chicken to go underneath the knife.
Yeah.
So when I see you, John, I want you to give me
My pleasure.
Okay. So I definitely would love to schedule that. Also, I'm producing a film.
Great.
And it's a tough casting job. So I would love to have a conversation with you about that.
Please send us the script. We'd be happy to read it.
Okay, wonderful. All right, John, take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Billy.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Please rate, review, share this with your friends. Subscribe if you haven't. Please take whatever you get from here, the golden nuggets, and apply them to your career. Go after your dreams with passion. Don't let anybody tell you it can't be done. I believe in you. Follow your dreams. I'll see you in Hollywood.